I do the Spanish.
Am I going to what?
You do the Spanish interpretation announcement.
Happy to do that for you.
Thank you.
The spelling of Marie's last name.
Sorry, whose last name?
Marie.
Marie.
Our interpreter?
Yes, her last name.
Oh. Marie, if you're able to hear us, would you mind changing your name on your profile? Thank you.
Stock. Thank you so much.
Okay, I do see community members starting to connect. Thank you. And I'm going to start the Facebook feed.
Okay.
Okay, Chair Turi, we are now live. We are recording. Ready when you are ready.
Great. Thank you so much, Karina.
We are waiting on a couple more.
Yeah, I want to give them the last minute to hop on. Good evening, everyone. My name is Maite Turi, and I'm the chair of the Springs Municipal Advisory Council, and welcome to everyone to our February 2nd meeting. I've been wanting to write 2/2/22 all day, so I'm really excited about being able to write that date down tonight. Anyway, it's really nice to see you all here. And Karina, would you like to announce our Spanish interpretation?
Thank you. Gracias por acompañarnos. Esta reunión cuenta con interpretación al español. Para accesar la reunión al español, por favor, haga clic en el icono en la pantalla. En la parte baja a la derecha de su pantalla encontrará un icono que dice Interpretation o Interpretación. Haga clic y seleccione Spanish o Español. Automáticamente estará escuchando esta reunión en español. Gracias a nuestros intérpretes Mari y a Juan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So just a couple of housekeeping items. If this meeting appears to be hacked, we will stop the meeting. Also, this is being recorded. It's on Facebook Live, and thanks to Sonoma Valley KSVY TV for live streaming our meeting. And Vice Chair Willette, would you mind calling roll, please? I think you're on mute.
Councilmember Alcaraz, I don't see. Councilperson Perot is here. Councilperson Lombard.
Here.
Councilperson Goldman.
Here.
Councilperson Reyes is not here at the moment. Myself, I'm here, and Chair Ituri, you're here.
All here. Thank you. All righty. We need a motion to approve the minutes from the January 5th and January 12th special meeting. And the regular January 5th meeting is, can we do it in one motion? Or do we need to do two?
I think if there are no edits, you could do it in one motion unless there are edits.
All right. Unless there are any edits, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the January 5th and 12th meeting?
I'll motion.
Thank you,
Second.
Anna. And Ray, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? No. Very good. Thank you. All right, we will quickly move on to public comment. This is for items not on the agenda, and we will have public comment for 90 seconds. Karina, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Turi. I do want to acknowledge Councilmember Reyes has joined the meeting.
Excellent.
For those members of the audience who wish to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature. We will acknowledge you and promote you to be able to make your comment. Give me just a second to put the timer on screen. Para los miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario público, por favor de usar la aplicación de levantar mano en Zoom o marcar estrella 9 en su teléfono en este momento y se le otorgará el permiso para hacer su comentario público. I do see one raised hand. Sabine, go ahead and unmute. When you see the timer, please begin your comment. Sabine, can you hear us?
She's still muted.
Yes, I can.
Oh, there we go.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for acknowledging me today and allowing me to address you. My name is Sabine Salek. I'm the branch manager at the Sonoma Valley Regional Library at 755 West Napa Street. I want to start by letting you know that we have new expanded hours. We're open Monday through Saturday, most days from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. But with our new expanded hours, we're able to be open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We invite everyone to come into the building to enjoy our computers, our free Wi-Fi, to sign up for our free virtual programs, and to check out materials with your library cards. Our website is sonomalibrary.org, and there you'll find a lot of other resources. We have resources for personal growth, like our crafting database, Creative Bug, resources for personal enrichment, like our job seeking and skill building databases, and free online tutoring for students via the tutor.com service. You'll find also ebooks, audiobooks, music, film, newspapers, and magazine articles. A lot of our resources are in English and Spanish. And if you haven't earned a high school diploma yet, we offer a career online high school to adults. You can actually earn a high school diploma via this service. So come on in. We'll be happy to help.
Thank you, Sabine.
Okay. I don't see any further raised hands.
All righty. We'll move on to community event announcements. Are there any announcements of community events?
Any members of the public who wish to make a community event announcement, please use the raise hand feature or dial *9 on your phone if you are calling in. Para los miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un anuncio comunitario, por favor de utilizar la función de levantar mano, raise hand, o marcar estrella 9 en su teléfono, si es que está llamando a la reunión. I see one raised hand at this time, Chair Turi.
All righty.
Celia, when you see this timer, please go ahead and make your.
Thank you so much. This is Celia with Sonoma Valley Hospital, and I just want to remind everyone that there are online resources if you're looking for COVID vaccination and testing sites in the Valley and in the county. You can find those sites by visiting the Community Health Partners webpage, whose address is svhpvaccines.org. And you can also visit Sonoma Valley Hospital.org for additional resources and information pertaining to COVID specifically and overall health generally. I do want to announce that the hospital, in celebration, or not celebration, but making people aware of heart health, will be hosting 2 talks at Vintage House. Our topic is how gender influences heart health. We will have a talk on February 14th by cardiologist Dr. Sharifi. She will be talking about women's heart health. And then on the 15th, we will be having a heart health talk specific to men and general health, and that'll be given by Dr. Alex Reyno. Both are cardiologists with Marin Health, the UCSF health clinic that's based here in the Valley. For more information about what the hospital is doing and how we're doing, you can contact us at community@sonomavalleyhospital.org, or you can always call me directly at 707-935-5257.
Thank you, Celia. Nice work. That was. Well, what's going on? We're getting an echo. Did that stop? Okay, great. Okay, any more updates or community event announcements rather?
Nothing more. Thank you.
Okay, all right. We'll move on to the next item.
Actually, sorry, Chair Turi, I would like to make an announcement. Our next charla comunitaria is Thursday, February 10th. We will be discussing mental health in our youth, families, and individuals, along with COVID updates, vaccine and testing opportunities, resources, and financial assistance. So next Thursday via Zoom, charla comunitaria, and I will say it in Spanish as well. Les queremos extender la invitación a la próxima charla comunitaria el jueves 10 de febrero a las 5:30 a través de Zoom. Estaremos abordando salud mental de nuestros jóvenes, familias e individuos, al igual que actualizaciones de COVID, recursos, asistencia financiera y más. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Chair Turi.
Gracias, Karina. Okay, thank you all. We'll move on to the next item, the chair update. So again, thank you to KSVY, to Lynn Marie for taking notes. Thank you to Karina, and welcome Supervisor Gorin. Thank you for being here. Just a reminder on our presentation protocols, we'll have the presenters present. There'll be questions from the commission, from the council members, and I'll collect those and have the presenters answer all at once. We'll take any questions from the public or comments, and then we'll come back to the council members for final comments. And if there's a resolution required or indicated, we'll take that on at that point. All materials have been sent, all materials that we received prior to the meeting are sent to the council members via email. Also, I want to remind you that it's time for the annual report. So we need to put together our annual report on our different ad hocs and how the things that we've accomplished this year. I'll be needing some support with that. May 15th is the day, I'll remind you again, May 15th would be the day that I would need items by to be able to put it all together for a summer submission to the Board of Supervisors. So just a reminder on that. And then now we have a special topic that I want to discuss with you. We have the Sonoma Valley Fire Department. They are here asking our support on a couple of letters that we're going to take a vote on. I'm going to read them to you, and then we're going to take a vote and to determine our level of support on these letters for Chief Akre and the fire department. And Chief Akre is also going to give us an update later on, so he can expand on this a little bit, but we did want to put this vote in so that we can support our first responders. Okay, so you get to all listen to me read. All right, so this is a letter of support for a grant proposal to the Cal Fire Prevention Grant Program.
Chair Turi, sorry to interrupt. Would you give me a second so I can put it on screen as well?
Oh, excellent. That's great. So nobody has to just follow along. Thank you.
Sorry, which letter are you reading first? The Cal Fire grant?
The Cal Fire grant, correct.
Okay. You put it on screen.
Thank you.
Absolutely. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. So this letter is in support of the Sonoma Valley Fire District. Oh, sorry, I said department earlier. Application for grant funding through your organization. We believe the funding will provide a valuable benefit to our community. The MAC represents the best interests of the entire community while acting as a bridge for communication between County of Sonoma, local residents, and businesses on topics for the Springs area. Our organization represents an unincorporated area of Sonoma County within the Sonoma Valley between the communities of Agua Caliente to the north and the city of Sonoma to the south. We keep the County of Sonoma's district supervisor informed of any issues related to advisory topics, recommendations within the Springs MAC boundaries. We have considered ourselves aligned and partnered with Sonoma Valley Fire District, working to share information and advisement on ways to protect the quality of life, the land and properties within the Sonoma Valley. The SVFD proposal supports further collaboration with community groups like ours and our newly formed Fire Safe Council. In addition, their proposal enhances the capacity to protect our community from large-scale wildfire events on how to create landscapes that are healthier and less vulnerable to fire by creating and maintaining defensible space, access to the chipper program to remove hazardous fuels from properties, and clearing hazardous fuels along public, arterial, and collector roads. The Sonoma County Community Wildfire Protection Plan, Sonoma County's Wildfire ADAPTS program, and Sonoma County's Vegetation Management Inspection and Abatement program support this proposal. We strongly support this proposal and urge you to select it for funding. Sincerely, the Springs MAC. One at a time on the vote or together?
It's up to you. It's up to you. Yeah.
Both. Okay. I saw, keep going from Ray. Okay. This is the next letter, which is the Vegetation Management Grant Program. Do you want to put it on the screen? Thank you. Letter of support for grant proposal, Vegetation Management Grant Program. This letter is in support of the Sonoma Valley Fire District's application for grant funding through your organization. We believe the funding will provide a valuable benefit to our community. The Springs Municipal Advisory Council, MAC, represents the best interests of our entire community while acting as a bridge for communication between the County of Sonoma, local residents, businesses on topics for the Springs area. Our organization represents the unincorporated area of Sonoma Valley between the communities of Agua Caliente to the north and the city of Sonoma to the south. We have considered ourselves aligned and partnered with the Sonoma Valley Fire District, working to share information and advisement on ways to protect the quality of life, the land, and properties within Sonoma Valley. The Sonoma Valley Fire, the SVFD proposal enhances the capacity to protect our community from large-scale wildfire events by educating our residents on how to create landscapes that are healthier and less vulnerable to fire by creating and maintaining defensible space. Many of our residents have seen the success with this previous year's vegetation management, property inspections provided by SVFD. The extra time spent educating each property owner face-to-face on their property provided more compliance and provided for a safer community as a whole. We strongly support this proposal and urge you to select it for funding. Sincerely, the Springs Municipal Advisory Council. So
Do you need a motion?
I do.
So I would motion that we vote to approve both of these letters.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Mari? I saw Mari's hand, but I don't know. I think it was Mari Carmen.
Yes, sorry, yes, I second it, but
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you, Chief Akre.
If I may, Chair Turi, just want to remind you and everyone, we do have Spanish interpreting. Our interpreters are asking us to slow down a little bit when we're speaking.
Oh, sorry. That's me.
Yeah, thank you.
Rapid speed. I'll slow down now that I'm not going to read out loud. Okay. So the next topic I want to bring up is our SVCA. What is it? Our S liaison. So we have a couple of suggestions. We currently have, one of our seats is currently for the SVCA liaison to be a part of this meeting. We have not had a lot of success with finding someone to come to this meeting. There are a couple of suggestions that we have come up with and wanted to share that with the council. One is to remove that seat from our bylaws. The other is to have them come give us quarterly updates. Or the other is to have one of our members go to their meeting and report back to us. So those are kind of the three options that we are looking at right now as a possibility. So Karina, are we going to move this to an agenda item in the future, and we're just floating the idea now?
I open I invite the council to discuss and bring up their concerns or in favor, comments in favor. But yes, you definitely can agendize for a future vote. And if you have any questions on what those options entail, I'm here to answer.
Thank you. Avram?
Are we able to even discuss this because it's not on the agenda?
It's in the chair notes. Yeah.
Oh, the chair notes. Oh,
We won't vote on it tonight. Okay, we'll leave it there and bring it back for a discussion item at the next meeting. The last item that I have about SVCAC is they have our Springs MAC letter. And if anyone is interested in going to their meeting to ask for their endorsement during public comment, we can do that. So that's open to anyone who may want to attend their meeting and garner their support for our letter on the SDC property. Hannah?
Could you just briefly explain what the SVCAC is and how they represent the valley, and maybe just an overview? Would that be possible?
Sure. Can we do that at the next, that
Yes.
at the next meeting?
That'd be great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Moving on. So we have some terms coming up, the end of terms for two of our members who are not seeking appointment, and that's Avram and Ray. They both end in March. So thank you to both of you for all, the last 3 years. It's been wonderful to have you on the council. But with that comes, we need to be able to fill those seats. So if you have people that in the Springs, they can always apply, and there's an application process and an interview process. So, but just to let you know, and we'll say more about Avram and Ray at our meeting in March, but thank you to both of you. And then Karina, I think you're going to end the chair update with budget update.
Yeah, I haven't provided an update in a while, so I want to be able to do that real quick. Let me make sure I have it up on my screen before I screen share. Okay, so with all the recent invoices received, there's still a few missing from our interpreting agency as well as KSBY, but your available balance as of now is 5,801 for community projects. Yeah, that's that.
All righty, thank you. Okay. Supervisor Gorin, would you like to give us a little update on what's happening? Oh, wait, Avram, did you have a question? I'm sorry. I thought I saw your
yeah,
hand.
on the budget. It was just on the budget. It looks like we've used about half of the dollars in our budget for the first. Is this based on a calendar year or fiscal year?
It's a fiscal year, yeah. So it will be
Okay.
renewed at the end of
So
June.
we're
Oh,
actually
so
right.
it's like July 1 to June 30th. Okay. that
We're in a
clarified
good,
it for me.
we're in a good place with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Supervisor Gorin, would you like to give us an update on what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Good evening. I can't be with you for the entire night. I have a virtual classroom presentation at a SRJC class on environmental studies. So I'm anxious to talk with our aspiring future leaders. But first, I want to just give a personal thank you to Avram and Ray for your amazing contributions to the MAC. As I wrote to Avram today, I'm sorry to hear him say he's not going to reapply. And you two both have been part of the birthing process of the MAC and helping us to navigate through strategic planning and finding the voice of the Springs. So thank you both so much for your contributions. Your presence, your contributions have been so important for the Springs, and I've enjoyed talking with you and listening to your comments very, very much. So be well, enjoy life, be safe, and I know you'll join us when the spirit moves you, especially Avram, if there is art on the on the agenda, because we know that you will want to contribute to that conversation. Another relatively long board meeting yesterday, but our agenda was somewhat limited in that we really focused on strategic planning and approving our 5 strategic pillars along with the implementation plans for many of the very important goals and objectives that we have developed along the way. And I am the liaison for the climate and health and safety. So I've been participating in developing those goals and objectives and I'm sort of birthing the whole climate discussion and direction for the board. As you know, climate was going to be my focus as chair of the board in 2020, and whoops, COVID hit. So we've been sort of putting that on the back burner and nurturing it as it's going forward. I think the contributions, the settlement for the PG&E fires that came to the county were very, very helpful, because not only did we find funding and advocate for funding for a number of roads in the valley, and Rincon Valley and Sonoma Valley for repaving over the next couple of years, but we allocated $10 million to help with climate resiliency for over the next 3 years. That's staffing as well as projects. With those funds, we've been able to hire Anna Yip, a crackerjack climate analyst a graduate from Berkeley, and Barbara Lee, an incredible advocate and a voice of experience in so many arenas. And if you have listened to KSVY on Monday, we had a discussion on climate, both from the county perspective, excuse me, Tanya Nareth, director of the Regional Climate Protection Authority, Barbara Lee, me, Jack Ding, and a number of other commenters. Really a great program and discussion about what's happening locally. And I would go on the KSVY archive to listen to that because I think it was really good. And they're going to be having climate special broadcasts over the future. So I'm excited that we were able to approve expenditures for $10 million on Tuesday. Well, that was fast, but we've been working on those expenditures for a very long time. Just to give you a flavor of some of the things that we approved for funding in the climate arena. Let me see, rain catchment rebates in a western area of the county, flood risk assessment, and I'm going to be working on flooding issues for the next year or two in Sonoma Valley, because we know we are just as vulnerable to flooding as other parts of the county. Zero Waste Sonoma submit a couple of projects that will help them reduce the solid waste and track how that solid waste is being disposed of. We may be working on a poll, community poll, regarding your attitudes regarding climate surveys or climate actions going forward, drought resiliency planning. Oh my gosh, we were inundated with rain over the holidays when I had family here. They were grumpy. And not a speck of rain in January. Could we just water our plants? Those poor animals are really starving. They're eating all of my vegetation. Some class 1 bikeways throughout the county. We're going to be working with regional parks, including the Sonoma Valley multi-use path and the Shelville Trail. So some solar projects, carbon sequestration analysis with the Ag and Open Space, creating some forester positions. And we had a couple of conversations regarding food security. The Community Food Network out of the UC Cooperative Extension submitted a proposal, and we have funded or provided some matching funds for them. They're aiming for a grant, and we hope that they will continue to reach out to Food for All and work on an integrated food delivery system. And I want to thank Maite and Mario and so many volunteers for their work on Food for All distribution. So we're hoping to get you a little bit of funding for that from an overall perspective, as well as the grazing plan. Now, and some resiliency at the veterans buildings. We have some resiliency projects that we've completed at the Sonoma Vets building, but we're looking at some projects for the Santa Rosa Vets building. As you know, that's one of our primary evacuation centers. So we need to make sure that it is resilient during power shutdowns, fires, and places of evacuation. We had a grassroots effort to encourage us to fund $1.3 million free fares for transit countywide. And as chair of SCTA RCPA, we had that discussion a year or so ago about, does it make sense to provide free fares for transit throughout the county? And we decided maybe not quite yet. The best bang for the buck would be to improve coordination, look at the 4 transit agencies on how we can move towards consolidation and coordination. So that is happening. We desperately need that. As we're discussing plans for the Sonoma Developmental Center, we need to move the circulator bus up through the SDC, but also advocate for more frequent transit service up and down the valley and throughout the county. We're getting there, but our development patterns do not make it easy to provide transit efficiently. So that's the conversation that we had. We all did receive our assignments from the chair. Some of my assignments have shifted, and I'm really going to be focused a lot of my attentions on projects within Sonoma Valley, such as flooding, such as shared governance, and a few other things moving forward. So I stand ready to work with you as I have before. And I have a little bit more time and energy now that I'm no longer acting as chair of SCTA RCPA. So I'm anxious to get started with my team. And I would love to work with you in projects that you find really important in the Valley. And I think one of those projects moving forward is identifying MAC members at both of the MACs to help us identify roads for priority for future repaving. So I think that's on our agenda either tonight or next month. So I look forward to that and engaged conversation on how we stretch those dollars as far as we can possibly do it. And we have some important roads to pave this year, including Verano, Craig, and it escapes me now. I'm sure Karina will let me know, but a lot of those fire damaged roads are going to be repaved in the next couple of years. So thank you so much for all that you do, and have a great meeting, and I'll stay on for another half an hour or so.
Thank you, Supervisor Gorin. We appreciate your time. Enjoy speaking to the class. That'll be fun.
It will be.
So we have ad hoc updates. Again, these are just short reports on what people are up to. Emergency preparedness, map your neighborhood. Hi, Dana.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I missed you last month. So just a small update on Map Your Neighborhood. The initial grant through Sonoma Ecology Center does look like it's coming to an end. I've been in talks with the HR person there, and it looks like I've got about 24 hours left. So still some working time, but I may be operating as a volunteer for a short time until we can find hopefully another funding source to continue the outreach that we started over 2021. That might look, Hannah, I'd still like to meet with you, maybe to discuss the possibility of falling under the Fire Safe Council somehow. I know in the beginning, Iris and Marty Kamen had shared with me that that was kind of not the end goal, but possibly the way that we could work together on that. So that's possible. I also am connected with the Sonoma County COAD organization. So those are organizations active in disaster. And they were actually asking just at the general meeting last week about needs. So our need right now currently is funding. There's another Monday, this coming Monday, there's another meeting. So I hope to further along that conversation. But just know that that's being spoken about. Kind of some promising upcoming potential trainings. We spoke with Nancy Brown and the Sonoma County Department of Emergency Management on potentially hosting a Listos California training program, and that would be all in Spanish. So a great opportunity to get you know, some more leaders growing and spreading the word about emergency preparedness. So we've met about that in December. So hopefully in the next few months, we'll get some potential scheduled dates and locations. It will likely be held in Santa Rosa. We're looking at Santa Rosa, Marty Kamen, right?
Yes, they're looking to doing something central where people from different areas of the county can attend. And actually it would be the original Listos. So it wouldn't be Listos California from the state. It would be Listos from UC, from Santa Barbara, which is a very more in-depth certification or preparation for emergency preparedness. And also Nancy has invited us to connect with another gentleman from from Bodega Bay. I believe he's bilingual. So they kind of want to start like a bilingual search because mainly the one from the northern Sonoma County is mainly in English.
Yeah, there's some good stuff coming from, you know, our partners at the county, which is amazing. We're super grateful to be a part of that. And Iris and I had a conversation earlier about, I don't want to say marketing, but kind of what we're focusing on. So there are different focuses throughout the year through FEMA, through the County of Emergency Management, different focuses. So obviously winter is more debris flows, storm, wind, that kind of thing. We move into earthquakes. Then of course, fire season takes up a lot of it. So we're continuing on that. Just spreading the word and other immediate needs, obviously.
And don't forget to mention, we did a video and a promotion for the Department of Emergency Management, precisely for the winter season. So check us out for Dana and Mari Carmen.
They have a great page on SoCo Emergency. If you are interested in sharing any quick visuals, these videos are about a minute long too. They're made to share out to large populations, and they're in English and Spanish. I think they might be doing other languages, but I know we participated in the English and Spanish. So just yeah, it's a great team effort, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Mari Carmen. Fire Safe Council.
That's me. So I had my first meeting with Roberta with Fire Safe Sonoma, and it was me as well as some other groups in the Valley. There's who are forming Fire Safe or Fire Wise councils. Roberta recommended that we do Fire Wise rather than Fire Safe, even though Fire Wise maxes out at 2,500 residences. She just recommends that we do multiple Fire Wise. She says it's a better assessment for urban areas. Gary Johnson, he's sorry, I'm going to butcher all this, but Gary Johnson is with the Agua Caliente Fire Department, but got a promotion to, he does something that just is about fire prevention. And so he was on the call as well. And he told me that much of the Springs area has already had a risk assessment for almost all of the properties to the east of Highway 12. So that's just a great example of how working together, we're finding out where these assessments have already taken place so that when we have our overall assessment, we're not duplicating work. So I'm enjoying that Gary's working to help us in this way. So there's a whole set of dates for how to progress as either a Fire Wise or a Fire Safe group. And I'll be meeting with Roberta soon to keep going in the process. And in the meantime, if anyone, I have a little email list where I send out information. If you'd like to be on the email list, it's like a no obligation. If you just want to be aware of what we're doing, I'd love for you to send me your email. So my email address is hperot@gmail.com. That's H for Hannah. And then my last name is Perot. It's like Ross Perot, PEROT @gmail.com if you want more information about what we're doing. But I'm really excited. It seems like we're going to get going pretty quickly with this. So the end result is an assessment of our area showing projects that we need to do to make ourselves a more fire safe community. So that's the update.
Thank you, Hannah. That's awesome. You've made a lot of progress. Community outreach, is that Hannah and Jesus?
Yes. So I think what we've been up to right now is, and I think Jesus said that, but we have awesome English and Spanish. I don't know if people can see this, but they're flyers, and we've been putting them up throughout the community. If anyone has any good ideas of where they should go, let me know. But I've put up a couple. I don't know. I think Jesus and I had a list of different places to hit. So if anyone has good recommendations, please let me know.
Thank you. I think Jesus also went to a couple of events as well to spread the word. So thank you. Arts in the Springs. I checked in with Kate. I was able to get her on the phone. And so we are going to meet before Avram leaves us to come up with a project. We need to check with the county about the possibility of space that we can use. But that's where we are with that. So we are continuing to partner with Artiscape. It's just been a busy season for them, and we are looking for our next project. And I'm hoping that Avram will keep working on the arts project, even though he's not going to be on the MAC. I see him nodding his head. That's good. Okay. All right. Adhocs do have a shelf life. So at some point we do need to switch our Adhocs. So we don't need to do it this evening. Again, I like to let I like to float some ideas and then we can come back and revisit these later. But one of the ones that keeps coming up for us is our interest in roads and transportation. So it may be possible that that may be a future ad hoc for us as well. And then as I heard, I think it was Dana mentioning about maybe Map Your Neighborhood folding into the fire safe one and the arts one, perhaps working towards a project-based kind of work, and that we take on the transportation and roads ad hoc. So we will add that as a resolution for our next agenda in March. We've got a couple of resolutions for those for March. All right, is there any public comment on the ad hocs?
Chair Tori, I believe Iris raised her hand.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Iris. I didn't see that.
That's okay, thank you. Are we thinking about revisiting a plaza ad hoc? Is that possible?
We could add that to the list of the options.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Avram?
Yeah, I agree with Iris. Obviously, I'm leaving. Obviously, I was on the last plaza ad hoc. And I know Supervisor Gorin, and maybe she could comment on it, where we are in that, actually wanted us to back off because she was working on something. But that one was probably long-term. I think we need to do something. It's gone on far too long. So I just want to second Iris's idea of a plaza ad hoc, which I'd be happy to participate as a public member. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gorin?
Thank you for the prompt, Avram. Yes, I would like to comment. It's one of the priorities that I've established for myself is working quickly, hopefully, she says in air quotes, through a complicated project surrounding the community plaza. We have finalized a development agreement, a draft development agreement with Ken Matson, and I will be scheduling, Karina will help me schedule monthly meetings with Ken Matson and Dan Crowley and county team members. He wants to build some buildings around the plaza, a podium for the parking underneath, and some tenant improvements for the Center Plaza building. So there's a lot of complications. It's not as easy as just building a community plaza. And we hope that we can get there, but we're not there yet. So I hope to have better news. Yep, A-OK, we have the agreement and moving forward maybe next month or at the end of next month.
Thank you, Supervisor Gorin. If I may interrupt, Chair Tori, just want to remind everyone that is not an item on this agenda, so we cannot go into further discussion. I can, however, let the council know that you don't necessarily need an ad hoc for ongoing projects such as the plaza. You can designate member of the council to be, keeping up with meetings and updates on such projects. You don't necessarily need to create an ad hoc because, as you know, they do have a shelf life of 1 year. So if there are projects like, that the council wants to work on, you can designate one council member to work on them and report back to the MAC. Thank you.
And I would say that when we get to the point of community outreach to design or solicit ideas for the community plaza, the Springs MAC will absolutely be the convener of the community outreach for that. So you will, I'm not moving forward with decorating a square unless I have you and other community members participating in that discussion.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments from the council or public? Okay, we will move on to our first presenter. We have Chief Akre, and we have about 5 minutes for this topic. And then after that, we have code enforcement with Permit Sonoma, and then we'll take a break. So Chief Akre, welcome.
Hello, and thank you. Always happy to be here, and I will do my best to keep this brief. I know we've got a large agenda tonight. So the first thing I want to do is acknowledge and welcome Captain Gary Johnson. He's on the call tonight. He was recently promoted to our fire prevention captain position, and he is focusing primarily on vegetation management and community outreach. I know Hannah mentioned attending meetings with Gary. Gary has been actively involved in his role as a suppression captain stationed out of the Agua Caliente station in the past. And he is doing an amazing job already, making a big difference. And we really look forward to his continued involvement with the vegetation management and community outreach within our district. Next, I want to say thank you to the council and both Karina and Chair Turi for bringing the letters of support on really short notice. It certainly was not our intention to do that, but with the timing of the grants, it was actually very short notice for us to even apply for. So I really appreciate the support of the entire MAC, and for Karina and the chair to have brought this forward tonight for your consideration. A few other things. Want to mention a thank you to Supervisor Gorin for her continued support of fire services within the county and within Sonoma Valley. The board took action last week to promote and fund 4 different fire districts in their continued consolidation efforts, and to provide the best service they can to different communities within Sonoma County. That includes the Kenwood Fire District just north of us, and that definitely has an impact on us here in the Sonoma Valley Fire District. The stronger our neighbors are, the stronger we all are. So really appreciate that. Within that same meeting, we had to make, the Board of Supervisors had to make a difficult decision to postpone a countywide sales tax for fire services. Everyone agreed, the board, the Fire Service Working Group, which I'm a member of, Districts Association, Chiefs Association, and consultants just agreed that it wasn't the right time. It was more than an uphill battle if we were going to go either in June or November. So everybody recognizes the need for additional funding for fire services countywide. And we're determined to continue working on that and building both the education piece and the collaboration piece with various groups like the vegetation management community, and hope to bring this back to the voters maybe in 23 or 24. A couple other things. We very excited. These are just in its infancy right now, but the fire district is working collaboratively with the Department of Emergency Management to do a couple of initiatives in the late spring. One is an evacuation exercise with the Grove Street Fire Safe Council. And the second is a SoCo emergency alert exercise that we will do in cooperation at the end of April with a statewide exercise that is going to be focused on the SDC campus. The Department of Emergency Management in the county reached out to us. We've been a really good partner with them. We were the first ones to do a community evacuation drill when we did a Mayacamas evacuation drill a couple of years ago. And they reached out to us in hopes of being able to partner and collaborate on getting kind of exercising a predominantly Spanish-speaking community and engaging them in the SoCo emergency alert process. And so we, as the district, are excited and very happy to do that. And I appreciate both Karina's support as well as the chair's support in moving that forward. There's been a lot of really good just initial collaboration on ways that we can reach the Spanish-speaking community in the Springs and in Glen Ellen. You know, we all know from our experiences in 2017 that we were not very effective on a whole in terms of communicating with the Spanish-speaking community. And that's something that we have been determined to improve on. And I think this is a great opportunity to both exercise that and test it. A couple other things. As Dana mentioned in her emergency preparedness, you know, the Sonoma Valley Fire District, we do have a COPE or SCOPE program. It is on our website at sonomavalleyfire.org, and we do have those resources available in both English and Spanish on our website. We have also conducted classes in person when we were able to do such a thing. We did that both in English and in Spanish, and we will continue to do everything we can to outreach to the community and provide those preparedness resources and education to the community. I think the two other things, one is we would love to be included on any roads and transportation conversations. You know, that's a really big issue for us. It's something that we've been engaged with the conversations on what happens at the SDC. And that is, you know, both day to day, because additional traffic does affect our response times to emergencies. But then there's the other big picture impact, which is, you know, what happens when we need to do evacuations in the case of a bigger disaster. So we would love to be engaged in that. We are engaged with the SDC. We have been asked to comment. We have, and just recently I was asked to be a member of the planning advisory team, which I think is a great opportunity for you know, for us to put forward some of those community safety and preparedness concerns as we chart that course together. Last thing I will say, and this is, it would always try to end on a happy note or a fun note, right? So who doesn't love new fire engines? Well, we're getting 2 new ones that should be delivered here within a month. One of them will serve primarily the Springs community out of the Agua Caliente station, and the other one will serve the Glen Ellen community. So really excited about that. Unfortunately, due to COVID, they've been delayed by about 6 months, but they look phenomenal. They are on our Instagram page if someone cares to take a look. But always excited to get a new fire engine to be able to serve the community. And I know the communities are always really proud to have that. So that ends my comments. Very happy to take any questions that any of the council or the public may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just make a brief comment before I have to leave?
Sure.
Thanks, Steve, for volunteering to help us analyze some roads based upon your recommendation. We did repave Solano because it was a problem for your engines to access and ingress and egress out of the station. And so we look to you for great information. And just a quick message about STC. Thank you all for your letters and comments, really important. The board gave firm direction on where we would like to go. And I was a little surprised to hear and read in the EIR scoping press release that they're still going to be looking at analyzing the proposal for 900 to 1,000 units on the campus, as well as perhaps looking at a lower level. So we will let everybody know when the schedule is set for EIR scoping, and maybe some helpful hints on what kind of comments that they are looking for. So it is not over. So if you're interested in more housing, Hannah, Great, here's an opportunity. Yes, I did receive your conversation that you left us, as well as folks who are really concerned about how much development is on the campus. So stay tuned, a lot of conversations. Be well, everyone, and I'm going to say good night to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gorin. Have a good evening. So Chief Akre, thank you so much for your report. I'm very excited for all the work that you've been doing. I know how dedicated you are to this valley, and it shows through everything that you're doing. And I really want to thank you and commend you on your outreach to the Spanish-speaking community. So thank you so much for that. Are there questions from the council?
Thank you.
Hannah, and then Avram, and then I'll gather them for Chief Akre.
Yeah, my question was just, why were we looking at a sales, or was there any thought of, rather than a sales tax for fire safety, as perhaps looking at a parcel tax? Why or why not? Thank you.
All right, Avram?
Yeah, I would just like Chief Akre to comment a little bit about adding, 2,500 to 3,500 people in the SDC project, because we're looking at, if you have 1,000 units, it's I guess 2.65. They figure persons per unit. So somewhere between 2,600 and 3,000 people in a fast moving fire, which we've seen, where people have to get out. I saw people in Glen Ellen getting out in their bathrobes. That's how quick they had to get out. What is your view of that, to add that many people given a fast moving fire?
So Chief Akre, SDC is not on the agenda. So if we could try to maybe.
Well, it's not on the agenda, but you said to ask questions regarding Steve
I
Akre.
know.
That's a question.
I know. So I'm going to ask him to
I'm not
answer
discussing it. I'm not discussing it.
I know. I'm just going to ask him to kind of answer it generically when it comes to evacuations and that amount of people. And then the other question is the parcel tax.
Yes. So first we'll go in the order that they were received. So thank you, Hannah. Really good question. From my experience, and I've been working on the Fire Advisory Council and Fire Service Working Group, a very small group of representative leaders trying to, advise the county on the needs of the fire service, as well as ways that we can address them. I think the parcel tax versus sales tax, I know that there's a question of, the sales tax being a regressive tax versus a parcel tax, and that's certainly a consideration. But many fire districts in the unincorporated area already have a parcel tax for fire services, and the cities do not. And so I think in the kind of look of fairness and equity on that level, we were looking at a sales tax versus an additional parcel tax. I mean, at the time, we're looking at, parcel taxes, and this is another issue, and we could go down a huge tangent on this, but there's fire districts that have a $40 per parcel annual tax, and we've got a district in the county that's $550. So there's a lack of equity even within the existing parcel taxes. And so it seemed like it was a big mess to try to get into and try to frame some sort of equity and fairness within. So we looked to pretty quickly to a sales tax as acknowledging while it's regressive, it seemed to be more equitable. So I hope that answers your question. Happy to talk more offline if you'd like more information, but that's the basics of it. And then as far as SDC, yes. So the letter that the fire district and I put out to in regards to SDC, to the planning department, to the county leaders, board of supervisors, et cetera, and I spoke to this at the Board of Supervisors meeting on SDC. Yes, we are very concerned about traffic flows. And again, as I kind of briefly touched on, there's multiple aspects of this. There's basically three that I see at its core. One is pedestrian safety, right? I mean, that's a huge issue in the Valley. We've seen a number of, very significant tragic incidents within the Valley where pedestrian safety was compromised, and we need to do better, as a Valley to protect our pedestrians. Secondly is vehicle traffic on a day-to-day basis. We see the traffic backups on Highway 12 through the Springs, at commute times, at school times. I would be disingenuous if I didn't say that does not have an impact on our responders' ability to get to emergencies on a day-to-day basis. So we're concerned with that as it applies to Arnold Drive and SDC. And then the last one is, yes, of course, evacuations is a critical component of this. Nobody wants to be in 17 again. I will say just a couple of brief general comments and then I'll end. But as a county, we have come a tremendously long way since 2017 in our alert and warnings. So I feel like the alert and warning and evacuations we're able to forecast those and communicate those much quicker than we were in 17. So what it's going to result in is a more incremental evacuation rather than everybody trying to leave at once. So that's a big component of it. The other thing that I know has been discussed, and I really look forward into diving into this more deeply, is they were talking about a secondary route out of the SDC development onto Highway 12. And I know there's a lot of considerations, wildlife corridors, all of that stuff. But, right now, I don't have a firm opinion on that other than to say that, for the fire service, we're going to advocate for public safety always. We're going to advocate that all codes and standards that are out there are enforced and applied. And then we'll definitely apply some good common sense and what we think is best for our community here in Sonoma Valley. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief Akre. Is there any comment from the public?
Members of the public who wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature at this time. You will be promoted to be able to make your comment. You may also press *9 if you have called in. Para los miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario público, por favor de utilizar la aplicación de levantar mano o se puede oprimir *9 si llamó a la reunión. No raised hands, Chair Turi.
Thank you. Any final comments from the council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Chief Akre, so much. And thank you, Chief Johnson, for your time too. I appreciate you both being here.
Thank you so much. I'm going to bid everyone a good night and I'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ray and Avram, for your service. It's been a pleasure to work with you both.
Okay, we're going to take a quick 30-second break to switch translators.
Yes, let's just make sure. Thank you, Juan, for your assistance tonight, and we will continue with Mari. Mari, if you can pop on the screen real quick to let me know. Thank you, Juan.
Thank you, Juan. Gracias.
Mari, can you give me a thumbs up on the screen when you're ready?
No, not Mari Carmen. The interpreter's called Mari también.
Yes. Not
Pobre Mari Carmen.
Perfect. Listos.
Okay. Okay. Our next presentation is Code Enforcement and Permit Sonoma. So we have Tyra Harrington, and we've allocated 10 minutes for this topic. So Tyra, thank you for being here.
Very good. Thank you for inviting me. I've been to the Springs meeting several years ago, and so I'm really happy you formed a MAC and I'm able to come back again. Anyway, my name is Tyra Harrington. I'm the Code Enforcement Manager. We're located in Permit Sonoma, a section within Permit Sonoma. I manage a unit that investigates public nuisances on private property. We don't deal with public property. We just deal with people's what we call public nuisances on private property. And that includes building, zoning, which is the uses on properties. We also do cannabis enforcement, vacation rental enforcement, encroachments, and most recently over the last couple of years, the public health order, which has been very interesting. I have 9 inspectors, 1 supervisor, and 3 clerical staff. We get about 1,600 cases per year that we go out and investigate. What happens during an investigation, just to give you a brief synopsis, is that when we get a complaint, and again, we're only complaint initiated, we go out and investigate the complaint, determine if it's a violation. Once we do, we give a notice of violation after we educate the property owner or tenant, whoever it may be, why whatever they're doing is in violation. And then that notice gives them typically 30 days to correct the violation. Depending on the violation, we can assess a daily penalty for them being in violation, or we can put what we call a penalty multiplier on the permit if it's a building permit. If they fail to correct the violations within a reasonable time, we can take further action, which increased penalties, and we also can bring them to what we call as an admin hearing, where they will be in front of an admin hearing officer, and that hearing officer will review the case and make some determinations. Or quite often, if it's a pretty significant violation, we'll take it to our county council and they'll initiate civil action against the property owners. As maybe some of you recall when we were brought to the Springs quite a few years ago, that you had a lot of vacant buildings that we were successful in getting torn down, and we recently had rehabilitated the Tinker property you're probably aware of, and it's in the process of being sold. So we're always eager to help where we can, and then I'll open it up to questions you might have.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from council on code enforcement? Iris?
Thanks. The process seems to me murky, and I'm sure it's just because I don't understand it. How it seems like actually the Tinker property is in my neighborhood, and that it took forever to get them out, and it's taking a very long time to get the property developed again so that people can move in. And I guess why does it take so long? Why does it take so long to get this all done is my main question. And I'm sure I know that there are, lots of boxes to check off, but it's kind of agonizing to watch. Thank you.
I can imagine. I get frustrated as well. I've been with the county 6 years now, and we've sped up the process. We do have adequate staffing now, finally. When I came on as a senior code inspector, there was literally only 4 of us. People were out on medical leave, different issues. Now, like I mentioned, I have 9 inspectors, 1 supervisor. We work closely with our county council now. We don't let things simmer too long. We do have to give people due process. Private property has a higher level of due process where we just can't come in and take someone's property. I agree with you, Tinker took way too long. Is some of the other properties that we had torn down. Once we were aware of it, or me personally aware of it, we got in and got the owners to tear them down. But yes, the process can be long. We have to give them their due process. We have to give them a hearing or go to civil court. the Tinker property, what we had to do was go in and get what's called a court order receiver and have them be appointed to be in charge of the property. It's not the county, it's this private receiver. They're typically attorneys, and then they work with the property owner and make decisions on behalf of the property owner. In this case, decision was made to rehab the property and sell it. And I agree, it took way too long, but a lot of legal hurdles.
Thank you. Are there other questions from council? Hannah, and then I think Iris, your hand went back up. So Hannah and then Iris.
Are complaints private, or are they shared, or is the complainant shared with the person that they're complaining about?
Good question. They are kept confidential. The courts have ruled that because it's in the public interest, it's important that cities and counties keep those confidential. We only release the information if a judge orders us to, and I've never heard of that happening yet. It certainly could, depending on the scenario, but we do keep those confidential.
Thank you.
We do require that you give your name and contact information, so we have it on record, and then we can follow up with you on any questions or concerns that we might have based on whatever your complaint is.
Thank you.
welcome.
Iris?
Actually, what I've noticed in my neighborhood also and around the valley is that some properties seem to simply have been in a family for a long time, probably after a person has gotten too old to live by themselves or has passed away, and nothing moves there. And then there are some that do sell. There's one right down the block from me that sold and basically was a terror downer, and it's about halfway torn down with no signs of progress. And the other thing is, you know, for a property owner that you realize probably doesn't have the money to keep up their property, how do all those things get handled? I mean, those are all you know, delicate questions that have to do with, you know, with finances. And I guess that's it. It's pretty vague and general again. Thank you.
That's fine. People are required to maintain their property and keep it secure. They can't keep it boarded up for any length of time. If they do have a building permit in the county, they have 3 years to complete that work. So it could be a long, drawn out process. And if you have any questions, you certainly can call in and we can check on the situation, but it's, they have to maintain the property, just minimum maintaining. They have to keep the grass mowed, they have to keep it secure, all those kind of things. So
Thank
hopefully
you.
that answers your question.
Thank you. Are there other questions from council? Okay, we'll move to public comment.
If I may, Chair Terry, I have a quick question that I wanted Tyra to address. We do hear often complaints from the community on the process for graffiti. You know, if you find graffiti on a fence, on someone's property, what is the process and who is responsible? So if you could touch on that real quick, Tyra.
Sure, I'm sorry, yes. Graffiti, which is terrible. I can't even imagine having to come home and find things on your fences or on the sidewalk or whatever. But unfortunately, the property owner is responsible for cleaning that up. Code enforcement doesn't get involved in that, unfortunately. That is your responsibility to clean it up. I don't know if you work with the sheriff's office, if they can provide some assistance as far as perhaps knowing who did it. And typically, my experience working down in LA and other counties, they typically have some ideas of, you know, based on what's put on the property, what type of graffiti, who it might be. But yeah, it is unfortunately the responsibility of the owners of the property to clean that up within a reasonable amount of time.
Thank you. Avram?
Yes, thank you, Tyra. We've had the opportunity to talk before. My question is, it's not necessarily code enforcement, but you might be able to give the answer. And I think it's something people in the community would appreciate. And that's in our neighborhood, we do have more than occasional dumping. People just dumping garbage, piles of stuff rather than going to the dump. Do you know what our community can do? Is there a place that people can call?
If it's on private property, again, like the graffiti, if people are dumping on private property, we would go after the property owner for it, unfortunately. If it's on public property, the TPW will pick up some of that. The Transportation and Public Works will pick up that. So it just depends on where it's located.
Yeah, this is just, it seems the most recent case was on Park Avenue, and it's just off the pavement. So I think it's hard to know whether that's county. They've come by before. I just wanted to know if there was, I think you answered my question. TPW.
Thank you, Avram.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment at this point?
Members of the public who wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature. Dial *9. Miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario, por favor de utilizar la aplicación de levantar mano, o también pueden oprimir *9. No comments at this time.
Great. Okay. Any final comments from council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. I mispronounced your name.
Oh, it's a hard one. No problem. I'm used to it.
Yeah, I know how you feel. I feel the same thing happens to me. But anyway, I apologize for that.
Again, please reach out if there's anything you had questions about or anything you think that we could help you with, and we're more than happy.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. All right, we are going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back with a portrait of Sonoma. We're lucky and very happy to have Oscar Chavez and Alegría de la Cruz here, and we'll see you all in 10 minutes. So, get a drink of water and come back. All right, see you soon. Thank you.
Territory recording has resumed. Ready when you are.
Thank you. Hi. Welcome to Alegría and Oscar.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here. So feel very fortunate to have our own Portrait of Sonoma viewing tonight. So we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen because we do have a little bit of a PowerPoint here. Is everybody seeing our beautiful PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. So muy buenas noches. Good evening. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share this information with you tonight and to hear some of your thoughts and questions. My name is Alegría de la Cruz, and I am the director of the Sonoma County Office of Equity. And my compañero Oscar Chavez from the Human Services Department is also here tonight. And we're gonna do a little tag teaming of this presentation tonight. So thank you so much. All right, adelante. So the portrait, what is the Portrait of Sonoma? So you may be thinking, I already heard about this thing. It happened a little while ago, but the great news, right, is that this is actually an update. We're really looking at what we've done since 2014, the first time that this report was published by the Sonoma County Department of Health Services. And DHS, working with an organization called Measure of America, created this Portrait of Sonoma County 2014. And what this did was it really looked at the well-being of different communities, different community members within the County of Sonoma. And it analyzed the differences between neighborhoods, ethno-racial backgrounds, and how people were doing and living and feeling, and also looking at gender in our county. And in fact, it was one of the first reports of its kind in our community. And it really showed us, it highlighted the significant inequities that people in our county live and experience every day, particularly around kind of ethno-racial groups. So it really helped to shift our community's understanding of what determines well-being and how these conditions can vary across neighborhoods. So what this data, this 2014 did was really also help to support advocacy efforts and to really make clear some of those areas for important focus and for resources. And so what this update does, the 2021 update, is to really help to continue to uplift this message around these issues of inequity in Sonoma County and the disparities that, in particular, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, as well as immigrant and undocumented residents, the experiences that they have, those should not go kind of unchecked or unremedied. They've gone unchecked and unremedied for far too long. So really at the core of this report and of the information that we're going to share tonight is around how do we work to address inequity, because we recognize that it's unjust, right? It's not okay for different people to experience very different realities based on the color of their skin. So it's also a moral imperative. And we also know that inequity doesn't just harm those people who are experiencing it, but it really does impact our entire community. It harms our overall growth by decreasing per capita income. It damages our overall community's health and well-being. And it also decreases that disposable income that many of us do enjoy. So the other thing that is important to take away from this is recognizing that inequity also really results in greater levels of unhappiness in a community that experiences such great inequity inside of our county. So making sure that we really understand this inequity and understand the core roots of it helps us to turn the curve, right? To address those outcomes and to imagine different realities for people that are experiencing these inequities. So we're really hoping that this motivates, that it inspires, and that it really paves a new path and shines a very clear light in the direction that we want to go. Okay, so we're looking at an important marker, and we're using something called the Human Development Index. And what this does is recognize that there are many factors that can influence health and our access to opportunities, but there are three things in particular that are critical. And so we're working with our partners at Measure of America. We really measure and understand well-being as being influenced by three areas. So first, right, life expectancy. Do we have a long and healthy life? Second, do we have access to education, right? And third, do we have a decent economic standard of living? So these three things kind of combined together create a single score that helps us to understand well-being expressed from 0 to 10 And essentially what we do is we give ourselves a score, right? Based on these three areas, these three indices kind of put together in one. So 0 is the lowest and 10 is the highest. So it's going to be fun to see how we match up across the state and across the country. So this helps to really show us how is Sonoma County comparing to the state. So the report tells us that the HDI, the Human Development Index, is higher or better in Sonoma County than the state of California and the rest of the country. Our rating is 6.19 as compared to 5.85 in the state and 5.33 in the United States. So it looks like in 3 areas we're better off, right? Great news for our county, but I think it's really important for us to mention, and this is what the portrait helps us to make very clear, is that this score varies greatly and it really can also hide differences, right? So if we're looking at that average score, what that does is hide differences that are experienced by social cultural groups in the county in the same exact county jurisdiction. And so it's really important to recognize here that this doesn't just measure kind of Sonoma to the country and to the state, but it also really looks at how are we doing inside of our county around these lines of race, ethnicity, and gender. And again, looking at these important disparities, this inequity. So looking here, the portrait helps us to show, right, how well-being has varied among these different groups over the past 7 years. So we see that between 2014 and 2021, the HDI, right, that index, has actually declined for people who are members of the Asian communities and the Black communities. And in particular, the Black community in Sonoma County has suffered the greatest decline in overall well-being as a result of living here in this community. On the other hand, in the same time period, we see that well-being has increased for Latinx and for white residents. So it really helps us to show the ways in which systemic racism has impacted the overall well-being of certain communities in our county. So we also see still a marked difference between different ethno-racial groups, right? So it's really important to ask ourselves as we look at this information, what are the conditions that are creating these inequities? And what can we do to change those conditions so that all people can kind of experience that upwards trajectory when it comes to health, education, and income? And so in order for us to see those lines and those spaces shrink between those groups, we are really going to have to undertake some collective action fueled by this conviction that this data gives us and really anchored in solutions that value the human dignity and recognize the important assets that do exist in our community despite these differences. So this gives us a kind of a deeper look, right, by ethnic and racial groups. And so we can see again that the HDI score is varying really greatly. So Asian residents have the highest HDI score, but their score has decreased since 2014. And white residents have the second highest score, right? But the Latinx community, well below that of the white community. And this is in large part, because we have issues around access and kind of traditional measures of success in school, as well as access to living wages for this population. So while only about 4% of white people in Sonoma County have less than a high school diploma, about 36% of Latinos do not, right? And so also looking at when we compare income, white people earn a little bit over $15,000 more than Latinos. And so that is money that can be used for things like school supplies, right? To support that increase in educational attainment, but also food that goes to support, healthy food that goes to support longer life expectancy, gas to be able to go and enjoy living life throughout all the beautiful parts of our community, right? So those inequities really start to become clear. Now, if we also look at, other markers here, on the other hand, the Latinx community has the longest life expectancy in the county. Latinx residents live about 4 years longer than white people in this county. One important thing that I just want to put a pin on here is that this data only went up to 2019. So this does not include the significant and hugely detrimental impacts of COVID in our population. And we recognize that in many ways, some of these numbers are going to shift, specifically around life expectancy in the Latinx community because of the intense impacts of COVID in that population. So it's also important to look at, what does the HDI scores look like in Sonoma County based on different census tracts. So we're looking also at HDI scores can be assigned right across geographic areas. And there are 4 tracts in Sonoma County that scored under 4 on using that index. And those are Rohnert Park, BCR section. Possibly the answer here is around kind of recognizing there's a lot of students who live in Rohnert Park and their incomes are going to be relatively lower to the rest of the population, but also looking at areas 2, 3, and 4, Bicentennial Park, Comstock, and Roseland. And this is a notable improvement since 2014, when 3 tracts, including Roseland, actually fell under 3, and 10 other areas had scores below 4. So we see some impacts, but we also see still that huge gap based on on who you are. I am going to now turn this presentation over to Oscar for a chance to introduce himself and keep talking about this good stuff. Oscar?
Great, thank you so much, Alegria. Oscar Chavez, Assistant Director with the Sonoma County Department of Human Services. If you can go on to the next slide. So as you can see here, that in the entire county, the highest scoring community is East Bennett Valley. And it has a human development score of 8.65. And in contrast, the geographic area with the lowest human development index is Roseland. It has a score of 3.38. Now, these numbers tell us that these 2 neighborhoods have very different resources and opportunities available to its residents. In this way, we can see that where we are born, live, work, and play is important. Where we live affects our reality and our access to resources. And this geographic analysis or focus can help us boldly allocate resources and shape new socioeconomic and political structures so that our members of our communities can thrive. And just to note that each of the 99 census tracts in Sonoma County has an index score. So if you look at the report, you'll be able to see by census tract what that score is. So while we can also see the increase, can you back it up? Well, we can also see the increase in positive outcomes during this same time frame for some communities of color, such as Latinx communities. We must also ground ourselves in the reality that progress is not really progress when those communities of color still experience disproportionately negative outcomes as compared to white residents overall. It is important to keep in mind that there's nothing natural or inevitable about the kinds of inequities we see across the nation, state, and here locally. Native Americans, Black, Latino, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islanders, and some Asian subgroups in California have much lower well-being scores than white Californians. And this is not by happenstance, but because of decisions that people in power, most of them white, made over centuries. These decisions were intentionally designed to capture and maintain economic and political dominance using violence, hate, laws, and policies. And they continue to affect outcomes today. The hopeful idea is that just as decisions and policies and laws can create inequality, so too can they create justice and equality. And this hope will only become a reality by working in collaboration with the most impacted communities to design an action plan. That said, what would you like to ask you? What we'd like to ask you to think about is, what would a successful plan that engages the community look like? Is there something that comes to mind that you would like to share? Maybe pay people for their participation, offer free food, a transportation voucher, free childcare, or what does the data present and mean to you? Something that is urgent for you or gives you hope? Next slide. So this is a tool that we plan to use as part of our community engagement for the Portrait of Sonoma. This was developed by Rosa Gonzalez, and this is called the Spectrum of Community Engagement. And this is really about democratizing the way we engage with our community, really engaging those that have the most to gain from being involved in addressing these problems. So we recognize that when we build knowledge together, when we are more inclusive in the way that we invite dialogue in our community, we actually get to solutions faster. So this is going to be our approach moving forward with the Portrait of Sonoma. And so kicking off this new year, the organizations that have spearheaded this project will lead a process of community engagement to develop an agenda for action to guide our collective work over the next 5 years. The agenda for action is a roadmap that will be co-created with the community through their input and guidance. Now, this roadmap will direct financial resources where they are most needed, and the agenda for action will attempt to repair the damage caused by structural racism and systems of oppression. 7 years ago, the agenda for action was determined by the producers of a portrait of Sonoma in 2014, and the authors of the report determined our local priorities. This time, we've had a lot to think about, and we recognize that the agenda for action needs to be determined by the community and for the community. And we are committed to making this process a community-based effort, a community-led process. We also want to engage in data walks, and these data walks will be used to develop the agenda for action. The data walks are an interactive way for community stakeholders, including community members, researchers, program administrators, local government officials, and service providers to engage in meaningful dialogue around research findings of their community. It is important that we're all working off the same page so that we can get a solid understanding of what the data is telling us. With these data walks, community members will be able to combine specific data points and personal experiences to better explain where and why programs and services and policies are falling short. Now, this feedback can inform vital changes in programs and services and policy to better address the community's assets and needs. We will be holding a series of data walks with communities who are shown in the data to be most disproportionately impacted by our county's inequities, to identify areas of focus to develop an agenda for action. And the agenda for action will define the scope and scale of our focus areas and determine strategies that will help us achieve the intended results set by the community for the upcoming years. And additionally, we want to make the data accessible to all. And therefore, we will be holding sessions for other groups, policymakers, and stakeholders to help familiarize them with the data, support their use of the data and planning, and to build understanding and commitment to listening to the priorities for action identified in this report. So we want to take this opportunity to invite you and to see how you want to be engaged in this process and what additional information will you need to be part of this movement to really create an agenda for action that can lift up human development, particularly in those communities that are hardest hit. So I want to thank you, and we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Oscar and Alegria, for your time and the presentation. That was a lot of really good information. I could have spent a lot of time on some of those slides. Are there questions from council members? And we'll try to summarize as best we can, but we'll see. Hannah?
Yeah, I know Alegria said that things might have changed with the COVID situation, but I found it really interesting that the life expectancy of the white population is 4 years less than the Latino population. And I was just wondering why that would be. Do you guys have any idea? Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Avram?
Yeah, I have a question. Years ago, before I had my current career, I taught school in Oakland Public Schools and certainly worked in some of the schools that needed the most help. I found the structure of the public schools really prevents achievement of students of color. And I look at the Sonoma schools, and continually scores are lower, higher dropout rates for Latinx students. And how do you propose to deal with sort of an inbred educational system that really isn't working? And what kind of strategies you have to turning that around?
So I hear two questions on the table, and I wanted to make sure to address Hannah's. Hannah, your question really makes me think about the ways in which, we see a lot of multi-generational living in Latinx populations, right? So you have people inside of kind of nuclear families that are multi-generational. And what we know about that closeness and that way of living is that it actually does support longer lives of people who are older in the Latinx community. We also saw the way that actually negatively impacted Latinx life expectancy during COVID, right? Is that multi-generational living, which in many ways was like a superpower for many folks in our community, also added to that additional risk of living multi-generationally. And so we really see kind of like the balance here of recognizing this really beautiful asset of what it means to live multi-generationally as, you know, in many ways as a coping mechanism for high rent costs, for high housing costs, but also just those cultural practices of you know, the importance of taking care of folks within your family who are older.
Alegria, may I add something to the life expectancy? It's an important question, and early on when we saw it in the report, you know, Latinos did have a longer life expectancy, and you know, some doctors call that sort of the Latino health paradox, which basically means we don't really. There's a multitude of factors that influence that, but one of the things that we do know is that immigrants who come to this country are generally healthier than those living in this country. But there's something that happens. The longer you stay here, the worse your health gets. So there's something about living in this country. We can look to the fact that food is very expensive. You have less access to healthy food. You have less of an ability to cook and prepare your own meals. And the added stress of having to cope with the stressors of living in this country. So over time, the health of Latinos declines. It's also important to note that right now, the Latino is a much younger demographic than our white counterparts. Our white population is aging, and therefore we'll have you know, less of a life expectancy over time. But there's a lot of different factors that go into this, and we don't really know exactly why, but those are just some of the things that go into play.
Thank you. And Avram's question was about the educational system.
Yeah, you have an expert here with Maite. So I would just say that I think this is a great conversation, but in many ways, what we're doing with the creation of the agenda for action, Avram, is making sure that those solutions come from folks who are experiencing those inequities and those structural challenges inside of these institutions. And so, you know, we don't have all of the answers. You know, clearly that's one of the reasons why our institutions continue to create these disproportionate outcomes. And so, you know, one of the key efforts that we're doing here is getting those folks at the table and at the decision-making table. So, you know, one of the kind of core tenets of equity work is recognizing that, you know, many times the people who are closest to the challenges are also closest to the solutions, but they can be furthest from resources and power to make those solutions happen. And so the creation of the agenda for action, really setting those priorities and getting folks at the table and making sure that we all don't leave the table saying, oh, they got it, right? Because we have so many of those resources and that connectivity to making those things come true. So, you know, I would say I'm looking forward to making sure that, you know, this body and many residents within Boys Hot Springs, which is one of those areas, right, of that low HDI score, of that, you know, generational experience of disinvestment, that generational inequity, that those folks are at the table as we create the agenda for action. And that's really where our efforts are going as we take the next steps.
Thank you. Iris, I have a question as well. I'm wondering, I see that you've got different sections within the county that have a lower, is it HDI?
HDI.
HDI. So are you specifically going into those communities for the outreach, or is this like an overall effort within the county, or do you see yourself doing more localized outreach and discussions?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for everybody because we're still in process of doing this, but I think, you know, the goal of equity work is recognizing that, you know, if certain populations are doing well, if they're scoring high, then our resources and our energy really need to be directed in those places that are not experiencing that same level of resource and intensity in terms of, you know, seeing how we're doing. And I think it's, you know, making sure that we all understand that inequity is universal, right? That we will all feel the drain to our overall health and well-being. And so it's really critical for, you know, folks in Bennett Valley not to look at that list and be like, oh, we're good. We're not going to engage anymore. And to say, actually, what we need to do in Bennett Valley in order to ensure that our well-being stays high is to go make sure that there are an equal number of parks in Roseland, that there's an equal number of after-school programs in Roseland, right? That we really, as a larger community, are saying how critical and seeing how critical it is to make those focused investments in those communities that continue to experience this institutional and structural marginalization, this institutional and structural kind of inequity at the core of their existence. And so, our hope is to be very focused. And we think that, using this HDI score and being able to show folks, how you compare and how, that when you compare looking at race and ethnicity, that's not just that certain people are living such different lives because of who they are and the color of their skin or the language that they speak.
Thank you. Iris, did you have a question?
I guess that actually segues into my question, because basically and it took me a while to formulate it, what we're looking at is reallocating funds and spreading them around more equitably. And how do we convince people? How does it happen that people become convinced that their well-being is tied up with the well-being of people who have a lot less income and resources than they do? I don't know how you accomplish that, but it's quite necessary, and it seems very obvious at this time, but it hasn't
Iris,
become that obvious.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and you hit it on the head. Our fates are intertwined. The success of our current population or of our future population is dependent on our ability to really provide the structures and the investments to make sure that we shore up those that are struggling today. One of the challenges that we have is that those that are doing well, our older, affluent, white community, is very much disconnected from the challenges that our lower income communities of colors are facing. We have done a really good job about segregating ourselves economically and racially in Sonoma County. And so the opportunity is, what are those spaces that we need to create? And part of what we're trying to do with this agenda for action is to invite all of these different voices, those that are doing well and those that are being challenged, to recognize and to really ask the important question about what kind of inclusive community do we want to create here in Sonoma County? And so this is about inviting voices and perspectives and recognizing that we have to invest a little more in some communities so that we can all achieve the same.
Thank you. Are there more questions from council members before we go to public comment? All right. Thank you. Is there comment from the public?
Members of the community who wish to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature or press *9 if you have called in. Para los miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario, por favor de oprimir *9 en su teléfono, o también puede utilizar la aplicación de levantar mano para hacer su comentario. I don't see any raised hands.
Okay, we will go back to the council members for final comment. Well, sign me up. I want to help. Let me know how I can.
Will do.
Anything else?
I just wanted to let you know that we dropped a copy of our presentation into the chat, and also Karina has a copy of it. I would say in particular, looking at the highlight on the springs, that is on page 10. And so that gives you a chance to really see where things are. And then the last thing that I'd mention is there's a really excellent kind of interactive map that folks can play with to see the ways in which these different parts of our populations match up against each other, and to really hopefully share that information so that we can get to that collective sense of responsibility and that urgency for action that this data gives us. So thank you again for having us tonight.
Thank you both very much for being here. Really appreciate it. Okay, we are moving on to Caltrans and the Pedestrian Plan and Donald Street. And we have Gregory and Jeffrey here with us. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us. Greg,
Karina,
I think you should go first with the pedestrian plan.
Sure, gladly. Karina, would you mind sharing my slides? Is that all right?
I don't mind. Let me open up the presentation if you'd like to quickly introduce yourself while I look for it.
Sure, gladly. Hi, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Greg Curry. I am the Pedestrian and Bicycle Branch Chief at Caltrans District 4. And as you probably know, District 4 is the 9-county Bay Area, which of course includes Sonoma County. So glad to be here. I was also the lead on the pedestrian plan that we developed. I think we kicked off in late 2018 and finalized the plan last year. Sorry, I forgot we're in 2022. So we finished it in April 2021. And so I'm excited to be doing kind of a roadshow and telling folks about how we developed the plan and how we intend to implement it. Jeff, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself while we're on it?
Sure. My name is Jeff Weiss. I'm the Information Officer of Caltrans for Sonoma County. And I'm here to answer questions and talk briefly about the Donald Gap project and some other projects that are coming up in the area.
All right, thank you.
Ready when you're ready, Greg.
Great, thank you. And I saw the comment earlier about at the very beginning about speaking a little bit more slowly. It's really, I will really try hard, but I tend to talk pretty fast. So feel free to let me know if I need to slow down. Yeah, as I alluded to earlier, Caltrans District 4, the 9-county Bay Area, developed a pedestrian plan over the last couple years to highlight where we saw the first to study what the existing conditions were overall for the state highway system in the Bay Area, and then look at where we thought the best or the highest priority locations were for improvements for pedestrians. You may be familiar with the District 4 bike plan, which was finalized in 2018. Went through a similar process, although it proposed specific improvements at each of the locations, and the pedestrian plan does not do that. It identifies the locations and plans for the specific improvements to be identified once projects are developed. So a little bit of difference there if you're used to one or the other. So I want to go pretty quickly through some of the background and basis of the plan. So Caltrans has a strategic plan that we are operating under. And we've got a number of goals. Just wanted to highlight two here that are relevant to, especially relevant to the pedestrian plan. So enhance and connect the multimodal transportation network. Of course, multimodal pedestrians are one of the key modes in consideration there. And then advance equity and livability in every community. And so we see obviously improving walking and making it easier and safer and more comfortable to do so as a part of enhancing livability. One of our other priorities in the plan is safety. I kind of thought it went without saying to include safety here. Safety is always Caltrans' top priority, and pedestrians are, of course, one of the most vulnerable roadway users. And so we think it's particularly important to look at pedestrian safety and how all of our actions may affect it. So we have these 4 overarching goals. These come out of the statewide pedestrian and bicycle plan adopted in 2017. That's called Toward an Active California. So those 4 goals identified are safety, mobility, preservation, which is a little bit of a different one, and social equity. And preservation, just to provide a little bit of context, that is talking about the preservation of the infrastructure that Caltrans owns and operates, which I know can be kind of in the weeds, but it's a top priority for us to make sure that we are preserving the facilities that we have and making sure that they're in good working order. And so we know that we don't always meet the public expectation of that. And so we want to make sure that that's considered in everything we do. We don't just want to build new stuff, but we want to make sure that we are maintaining and preserving the infrastructure that we already have for all users. So I've got a couple of major deliverables that I wanted to identify here. And actually, the Spanish slides have more deliverables listed on them on the English slides. That was a mistake. We've got the last one there about the treatment kit is that's not yet finalized, which is why I hadn't put it in the English slides, but it accidentally got translated. So my apologies. So we've got a summary report. It's about 40 pages. I'm sorry, it is 28 pages long. I don't know where 40 came from. It highlights, you know, how we got to the point that we did, what our planning process looked like, and how we intend to use the plan. The things that I use most often, and I think probably a lot of people will use most often, are the story map and the explore map. I know whenever I see a pedestrian or bicycle plan, I want to look at the map and see what is being proposed. And so the story map is a cool feature that allows you to scroll through a lot of maps that identify, you know, things like how have we rated the preservation or maintenance condition of our existing routes. And that's just one example. It's got a lot of different data mapped there, and you can zoom in or select which data you want to view. And then you really get to the meat of it with our we call it a location-based needs map, but it basically identifies what we see as the priority improvements. And then the explore map is related to that, but it allows you to select which data you want to view side by side. So when you're scrolling through the story map, you see several consecutive maps, and then the explore map gives you one map, and you can choose what data you want to compare. So I want to spend the most time on the story map, and specifically these location-based needs, as I referred to earlier. So like I said, the plan is not a project list. It maps where our analysis showed was the locations of highest need for pedestrians, and then provides a sort of preliminary prioritization or scoring of those needs. And so I don't know how well you can see this, but I've got a map of the area. I'm sure you're familiar with the main Caltrans route in your community is State Route 12. So that's really where I tried to focus on, and it's got some highlighted portions, but not the whole route is highlighted. So these were kind of in our preliminary analysis, where did we think the key corridors and crossing locations were that needed to be addressed. And then we also have a prioritization map. And so this gets into the scoring. I think it's on the next slide down. Thank you. And so this looks at the corridors where we could, where we have done some analysis and says, based on those 4 metrics, safety, equity, preservation, and mobility, what seem like the highest priority locations. And I want to be clear on this. The priority scores are really useful for us as we're looking at, you know, where might we initiate new pedestrian projects, but it by no means says, you know, we're going to build top priority projects everywhere, and we don't get to tier 2 or tier 3 priorities until tier 1 is all built. That's not what it says. So if we have a great opportunity to improve pedestrian conditions, but the pedestrian plan says it's a tier 3 need, we'll still move forward with that tier 3 need. Because a lot of the ways that Caltrans develops improvements are based on opportunity when we already have a project in the area. So if you look at the map and you say, hey, this location is really important to me, but you say it's tier 2, does that mean Caltrans does not care, or you're going to wait for years and years until you build all the tier 1 projects? That's not what that means. Just wanted to be totally clear on that. So I'll talk a very little bit about the District 4 bike plan. As I said, it was adopted in 2018. So it did a similar thing. It identified needs and priority bicycle improvements along and across the state transportation network. And it came out with a public web map of planned improvements and some of the data that supports those improvements. And it does actually suggest specific project or specific improvements for these locations. Now, what was identified in 2018 through a regional process may not be what the community wants or thinks is best once the project goes and gets built. So these are not locked in. You know, if we list one thing here, But then we go to construct a project, we will do additional kind of outreach and project development to find out, is this current? What do we need to change? That sort of thing. But I'd also welcome if you look at this and you say, hey, you proposed a class 1 here. We don't want that. That doesn't work for some reason. That's feedback that you are welcome to share with me anytime. And we can look at how we can, maybe adjust what we have in the plan, or at least keep track of that for when something goes to get built. So I'll stop there. I think I've talked long enough. Jeff, did you want to say anything specific, or just open it up to questions?
Well, you're part 1, and I'll do part 2, because we're going to talk about the Donald Gap and some other projects that are opening up. And I think we should just do them all at the end, all the questions all at the end.
Okay.
So I'll talk a little bit about the Donald Gap. And for people who aren't acquainted with that, that's a section of Route 12 that starts at Donald Street, where the sidewalk ends, and does not begin again for quite some time. God, I don't, does anyone know how far it is? Hannah, you know, right?
Not in
It's
feet,
probably
let's
about
see.
5 or 6 blocks.
Yeah, they're not really blocks,
it passes the bridge where the trailer park is. So yeah, it's several blocks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right after that bridge, then it picks up again. Mm-hmm.
So we had a meeting with Sean Nazari, who is the deputy in charge of traffic operations, and he was willing to be flexible and creative at looking on ways that we might be able to find some room in that area by eliminating a couple of left turn pockets and widening as far as we could to get some room to put a sidewalk in. And we weren't able to do that. We weren't able to find enough room to, I guess the word would be, improvise a sidewalk. I mean, I was very proud of Sean for being so flexible and not looking at it so dogmatically and saying, well, we can't do these things. But in the end, we couldn't find enough room to put a sidewalk through there. And I know that's not good news, and I didn't want to say it, but I think we go back to the drawing board and talk about perhaps funding a project to get a sidewalk through that area. And of course, with the sidewalk comes some problems with the high level of dirt next to it, where we might have to put a little retaining wall, and the problem with the bridge. But we're willing to take looks at that as well and see if there's ways we can do it that's less expensive, that wouldn't require so much, well, money. And we did work very closely with the county as well on that. We just didn't do it on our own. We asked them what would they like to see there, and I think they agreed with us. It'd be unsafe to take away the left turn south of the bridge and a left turn north of the bridge, try and squeeze some more space, to get some more space to put sidewalks in. That was sort of what we were looking at. And traffic safety didn't like that idea, and thought it would operationally wouldn't work as well. So that's not the good, that's the bad news. All right. Some of the other things that are happening is we have finished paving from Boys Boulevard all the way through the Springs, all the way out to the Four Corners at Leveroni. We're in the process of striping, so we have new asphalt through that whole area. They've updated a number of the signals and put in ADA compliant curb ramps, which are those yellow maps with the bumps on them. So those are good. Those are excellent improvements to the community, we feel. We put, I don't know if it means so much to everyone here, we put new railings on the Agua Caliente Bridge. That's a safety feature that we were required to do. It caused some consternation while we were doing it because it was not ADA accessible. Well, I guess it's not right now anyways, but there are people with wheelchairs who couldn't get through there. So now it's open and there's 8 feet on each shoulder for people to pass through. And then we've, in the town of Sonoma, the city of Sonoma, I just want to bring up that because you'll be driving through there, I'm sure, we're going to install 2 new hybrid pedestrian beacons, one at 3rd Street and one between 7th Street and Riverside Drive. And these are the new pedestrian beacons that you put in, not at intersections, but in blocks that are long and pedestrians don't have a place to cross. You've probably seen them other places. But you should, I put in the chat the projects so you can take a look at how the pedestrian beacons function. It's not so complicated for the pedestrians, but for the drivers, it's a little different. So it's something you might want to look at. And the last thing I'd like to mention is this summer, there are going to be 2 projects to rebuild 2 bridges, replace 2 bridges, one on Sonoma Creek, which is near Kenwood, and one on Hooker Creek, which people probably don't even know there's a Hooker Creek, but there's near the Agua Caliente Boulevard, there's a bridge there, and it's pretty much covered by trees. You don't even know it's there, but that bridge needs to be replaced. So there's going to be work going on this summer, and when we're working on the Sonoma Creek Bridge, there'll be one-way traffic control for a number of weeks, but we haven't finalized the details. I put those 2 projects in the chat. I mean, Katrina, should I put these up on the page, or should we just?
You're welcome to screen share if you want to show what it looks like.
I'll just do a quick screen share. Just because I know how it is talking about something and not being able to see it. And of course, I can't find it.
I have it ready if you want me to screen share real quick.
Oh, you do?
Mhm.
I can't believe I can't screen share. Oh, hold on. Let me try this.
There you go.
Can you see this page
Yes.
with the pictures? All right, good.
Well, it's a Word document right now.
Oh, it's still a Word document?
Mhm.
Hold on.
Is this the one you want to share?
Yes, just go ahead and show that. Well, this is the Route 12 paving project.
And then this is the paving on the.
Right. So if you could show the other one.
Is this not the one?
No, the other page. Well, here's the pedestrian beacons. These are pictures of them. They're on Slope Boulevard. And you can see how they overhang. And we also have a little cheat sheet there, tells people how they work for drivers and for pedestrians.
Okay, here we go. Can you all see this? The Hooker Creek?
Yes.
There we go. Is this the one?
Yeah, if you just scroll down, that's Sonoma Creek. And then that needs to be replaced. And that's located sort of in Kenwood, really, near Adobe Canyon Road. And if you scroll down a little bit more, and that's Hooker Creek Bridge. And that's pretty close to, in fact, I think that is in the Springs, really. And you can see this is old bridge built in 1900. And that needs to be replaced too. So that's a 2-year project for both of those bridges. And you might ask, all right, you may ask, why are they being replaced? They're being replaced because they're old and they are victims of a process called scour. When you have heavy rains, the water comes down the creeks very quickly and forms a whirlpool around the bridge pilings and scours out the sediment and basically the creek bottom around where the pilings or the abutments and the bridges start to move. And when they start to move, they start to crack. And we're at the point where they have to be replaced. So Greg, do you have any more updates for my talk, or should we turn it over to questions?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to share. Yeah, I think we should do questions.
All right. Thank you both very much. Hannah and then Iris.
Okay, thank you both for talking to us. And Jeff, you've been very patient and responsive to me. I originally got interested in being on the MAC because of a person who was killed trying to cross the street on Highway 12. That was on March 22nd, 2021. The guy was crossing from the bike path in the Maxwell Park. A car hit him and he died. On February 14th, 2021, 2 girls were injured in the same general area while trying to cross. On November 24th, 2020, a man named Ray Carrillo was killed crossing Verano Moore by on West Verano, kind of by the Boys and Girls Club. This is all the same crosswalk, the same general area. And it just really upsets me that people are dying. I don't think this is a normal, like there shouldn't be like a normal number of people to die on streets, but I have learned that I guess there's acceptable numbers of deaths by engineering standards. But I just think we need someone to look at this because these are strange numbers of deaths. I looked at the pedestrian plan and you can see how many times people call, people respond to Caltrans saying that we need help. And if you look at the North Bay, kind of between Napa and Santa Rosa, the brightest red indicating the most calls for help is right here at this intersection because people are having their loved ones die or get injured in this area that's very central to our neighborhood. So I just would like, I mean, you know, it's great to hear that you guys are looking. I mean, that's thank God someone's looking at this, but we need some help now so more people don't die on this road and in this intersection. And I just would like, I mean, someone, I don't know, I'd like a response or I'd like something to change because that intersection is deadly. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we probably owe you an update on that Verano intersection because that's where all those accidents occurred. And I think we talked in this forum about it, that it's an intersection that has a lot going on. There's a lot of stores there. There's a lot of traffic. The road. We also have that problem where the road narrows right afterwards, so people are likely to speed up. We have those pork chops that they call them, where traffic could just veer and go to a yield sign rather than coming to a complete stop. So there's just a lot going on there. And I guess I need to find out what an update on that. I just don't have that update on that right now. but I can get back to you on that. I know that they're looking at it, but I don't know what they've decided. The county did something good about striping it, but I don't know what else has happened. So I'll have to get back to you on that.
Well, Jeff, we'll have you come back when you have an update.
Okay.
Thank you. Iris, Avram, Ray.
Thank you. And Jeff, once again, if you come to the Springs, I would be glad to take you on a tour of that intersection. I would be way more than glad to do that. There are inadequate left turn signals and on at that intersection for people turning left from Verano Avenue, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, a big part of the problem. The other thing I wanted to say is that biking through the Springs, I frequently see people going the wrong way down the bike lane or being on the sidewalk, which sort of makes sense considering the conditions, and they're going the wrong way. And I would say that the major reason that happens is because there are inadequate places to cross the road from, well, I'm not real experienced on Agua Caliente to where, oh dear, Mountain Avenue. But from Mountain Avenue to Boys Boulevard, it's about a mile. And from Boys Boulevard to, no, maybe it's a half mile. I've clocked it before. But from Boys to Thompson, it's I guess a half mile. And those intersections have signals, but there's only one actual pedestrian crosswalk, and that's in front of Boys Food Center. And so for that reason, I think a lot of people who are biking come down the wrong way in the bike lanes. And that, you're not getting good compliance on people in the bike lanes. And it's also scary when you're turning onto the highway and someone comes the wrong way toward you when you're making a turn. The other thing is, I have a question. You're saying that Donald Gap goes from Donald Avenue to, I'm confused because the east side of the highway from the shopping center, the Vineyard Center, to the Donald Gap does not, and through the Donald Gap does not have a sidewalk. It's a little dirt path. There's a very narrow shoulder for bicycles.
Yeah, that's the Donald Gap.
Okay.
The Donald Gap is a gap in the bike and sidewalk.
Okay, I've never been clear about that because the west side of the street at least has a sidewalk that starts on the other side of the street beyond the bridge.
Yes.
And I needed to be sure that you were aware of that. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. I think I would say in a way we know what's wrong with the Highway 12 and Verano intersection. And the other thing is that we need more places to cross the street coming through the Springs. And as a pedestrian, it's real frustrating. I know that I should go the long way around, but I don't. I wait till there's a gap in traffic and then I dart across. Thank you very much. Hope there are no cops around when I do it.
Thank you, Iris. Avram?
Yeah, hi, Jeff. Nice to have you back. My question is, there are several communities that have state highways running sort of through the heart of the community, which Highway 12 runs through the heart of our community. It seems to make sense to me, and the traffic seems to keep getting worse and worse and worse. There is a parallel road called Arnold Drive. Same thing, it's a 2-lane road, moves very efficiently. Rarely do you have traffic backup. My question is, has it ever been done where you come down Highway 12 and let's say it is redirected down Madrone or redirected down Agua Caliente? That may not be the most appropriate. But another road before it hits the Springs, where Highway 12 would sort of veer off and then come back at Petaluma Avenue, and really take the heavy traffic off of the heart of our community. I think another way to do that, and I hate to do this, is putting in speed bumps. I mean, really slowing things down, maybe forcing people to use Arnold. You talk about being creative. I would love Caltrans to consider how traffic can be directed down a street that moves more freely, like Arnold Drive, and away from the heart of our community, avoiding safety issues for pedestrians as well as cyclists. Rarely do you see cyclists, it's just too much traffic. So I'd like your thoughts on that.
I'm going to take Ray's comment, and then Jeff, I'm going to kind of summarize everything for you. Ray, you're on mute.
I was just going to, I was wondering if Abram would bring that up again. It's a great idea. I mean, it's an old idea, and I think it in the grander picture at a larger scale, it really deserves merit. I was going to speak to the Donald Gap and the intersection. I think that whole thing is your project. I think the Donald Gap, the pedestrian flow through the Donald Gap and through that interchange or intersection at Verano on 12 is the project. And if you're going to make a project at Donald Gap, go ahead and extend your pedestrian study up through and see if you can make the whole project happen. That would be ideal to rework that whole thing so it would work, and flow and even meet up with the bike path up better. But anyway, that's my comment.
Okay, thank you so much. So a couple of things. So a couple of things that we'd like you to address is the traffic being rerouted down Arnold. The other thing is that the entire project, the Highway 12 project, could be from Donald and that intersection. And then I have a comment to add on to Iris's. We just heard about an equity. We just heard about the Portrait of Sonoma. We just heard about equity. And and I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it, you're putting those pedestrian lights in Sonoma and not in the county. So that has got to be addressed. Thank you.
Well, I can start with, well, I don't know if it's a philosophical, well, it's sort of the way government works in cities and towns that have a main street that is a state highway. Like Guerneville, Main Street is a state highway, Sonoma, Main Street, and Sebastopol in a lot of places, the main. So Caltrans, and Greg will back me up on this, has a program called Complete Streets. And that's the idea that things need to be, cars aren't the answer. You can travel in your car, but we got to look at bikes, we got to look at people walking, we got to look at community needs, right? Do you want to be a pedestrian friendly community? That means maybe we put you on a road diet so that people can walk back and forth with more ease. So, and I actually have a specific example. Your city right to the south, Sonoma. I don't know if everyone's heard about this yet, but the city council had voted to restripe Broadway. So it would be sidewalk, bicycle lane, parking, and then traffic lanes. And then on the other side, again, you'd have parking bicycle lane sidewalk. A very unique configuration that I only know exists in a couple of other places. One would be Golden Gate Park, has that configuration, and they were going to implement that there. And Caltrans said, yes. We looked at it. We said, this meets current safety standards. This moves traffic in a way that is commiserate with the community, what the community wants. They want a walkable community. There had been likewise in that community, a pedestrian struck by a car. And I think that's what changed the viewpoint of the city council, that they wanted to change the striping on Broadway and make it more of a pedestrian friendly area. And so if you want to do that, it's going to take local government to tell Caltrans what you want. And the local government, in your case, I believe, since the Springs isn't, am I right, it's not incorporated, would be going to the county and saying, we would prefer that Route 12 be the pedestrian friendly area and traffic would take these other routes. And the way you would do that is probably not by signage, although you might be able to do that, but it'd more likely be a road diet, making it so that you squeeze it and then people naturally take another route. Although you could probably sign it, but signs generally don't work unless they're enforced, and you can't enforce things all the time. Usually we do things in a way that's practical so that people want to cooperate, right? Like you want people to cooperate and drive the right way in the bike lane. So there might be a problem, what Iris was talking about, that people would ride the wrong way. So that's something you would look at. And then the part about the pedestrian signals, I don't know why. They're only in Sonoma. I do know that Sonoma themselves complained that they weren't getting enough pedestrian signals. So that's something I can't address right now, but we could think about that. And was there another question? I think I covered it all. Unless Greg, you want to add something?
I think you handled that pretty well.
Okay.
I don't have anything specific to add.
Thank you. I'm going to move us to public comment because our interpreters are needing a break here soon. And then we'll come back for final comments from council. I see Greg and Jeff coming back in our future here. Maybe they don't want to, but we're going to invite them.
Chair Terry, if I may, we do need to switch interpreters real quick. We are at the almost 3 hour mark.
Okay.
So if you could just give us 30 seconds for the interpreters to switch. And then Juan, if you could give us a thumbs up on screen when you're ready to go. We appreciate it. Then we'll go into public comment. In the meantime, members of the public who wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if you called in. Miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario en español, por favor de oprimir *9 en su teléfono o usar la aplicación de levantar mano para hacer su comentario. This time we do have one raised hand. Okay. Gina, when you see the time clock, please begin your comment. And Chair Turi, I want to confirm it is 90 seconds again?
Correct.
Okay, you've elevated me to a panelist. So hi, this is Gina Kuklis. And a couple of things. First of all, the idea, one thing to do with the bike path, I think it's hard to see, is the bike path if you've painted. Have you seen this in other communities where they paint the bike path? It's on a road. You've seen it in red, you've seen it in green. It's kind of now the standard of how you do a bike path on a road, because just the white line is hard to see. So I'd like to put that out there if that can be explored. And I've been following the whole sidewalk issue since the early 90s. And so I remember the Donald Gap issue. That's kind of one reason why I came. So I'm still really confused. One of the other issues was a pedestrian bridge, how you can walk across the bridge over Caliente Creek. There was a plan for a pedestrian bridge, but then there wasn't enough room because there's a mobile home that's right against the bridge there at the creek and the Lazarado Mobile Home Park. So it all became a big, oh, there's no money, we can't really do this. So I'm really hoping all of that is looked at differently now. I'm very confused by what was said about what is going to be happening with the Donald Gap. And the other thing, because I have been around a long time, working on these issues for a very long time, I want to just let everybody know this idea of rerouting Highway 12 to Arnold Drive, people go nuts. So just know it's not the solution the Valley will love. Okay. Thank you.
Gina.
Are there other public comments?
No further raised hands.
Okay. Are there any final comments from council members? Hannah?
Yeah, Jeff mentioned that, the way changes get made with Caltrans is having local government, which for us would be our district supervisor, with us, I guess, informing our district supervisor, pushing for what we need. I feel like that's what we're trying to do tonight. And I'd really like to know the actionable next steps so that we can interface as a community with Caltrans and make sure that we get some input, because hearing from people like Gina, and I've talked to other people who've worked on the sidewalks, it took them like 30 years or something. I mean, just, it blows my mind. That's about as long as I've been alive. And that's how long it took to get sidewalks here. I don't think we should have to keep waiting that long when we're a community that walks by need and bikes by need. And also we should be able to walk and bike safely. Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Okay. Jeff and Greg, thank you for coming to our meeting. As you can tell, we are very passionate about this topic. It's been a long time that people have been working on it. So the frustration is not aimed at either one of you. It's just the way it's a challenging topic for us. So thank you again for being here and hanging out with us. So we appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to close this topic. All right, thank you. Consideration for future agenda items. I will tell you what we have on our agenda for the future. I see Caltrans and pedestrian safety coming back, but it won't be next month, but in the future. We have regional library, Sonoma Skate Park, permit Sonoma vacation rentals update, regional parks Measure M presentation. A couple of these are pending. And then tonight we've heard we need some resolutions for our ad hoc. And there was another one. I lost it in my notes.
The SBCAC liaison position.
Correct. Thank you. Is there anything else? We are clicking through our list, by the way. That system did seem to work. So Iris?
I have some suggestions. I would like to see the council make a resolution telling the supervisors that we would like to see, we need to see a program such as the SAFE program that's in Petaluma, the city of Petaluma, or that's modeled on Cahoots in Oregon. That would be a really good step forward. I guess also I'd like to see a letter to the supervisors saying that we need bicycle and pedestrian safety in the Springs, and that they need to put the pressure on Caltrans apparently.
So if someone would like to draft that and bring it back to us, it's group rights are really hard.
Yes, I know. Okay.
As you witnessed on the 12th.
Yes, it was quite a thing. The other thing is I wonder about talking to the Board of Supervisors about funding for the homeless shelter that they're trying to get together right by Baker and Cook. The county has money for homeless shelters, and speeding that up would be great. I realized that the planning behind it was inadequate without realizing the necessity of engaging PRMD, but it's a really good project that's necessary. So perhaps we could do that too.
Thank you.
No little things,
No, not at all. Iris, you never come with a little list. That I am certain of, but that's good. They're all good things.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Aram or Ray, do you have, any requests for your last meeting?
Can we drink at the last meeting? I'll supply champagne for everybody. I'll just send it out and you can have your own little bottle.
We can salute you both. All right.
There you go. It's our retirement.
There
party.
you go. Your little retirement party. We never got. All right. Okay, I will ask for a motion for adjournment if there's nothing else to add.
I make a motion to adjourn our gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful Springs Municipal Advisory Council meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second? Iris seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, y'all. Have a beautiful week.
Good
See you
night.
soon. Thank
Night,
you,
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Lynn.
you.
Thanks, Karina. Thank you to the interpreters.
Thank you.